Week 12 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first hitter, Royce Lewis of the Minnesota Twins. He was injured for the majority of the season, but ever since he's come back, he's been white hot. Only 41 at-bats, 7 home runs on the year for Lewis. 11 RBIs, 12 runs scored, a 390 average, and a 447 on base. Obviously, Royce Lewis, he was one of the top prospects in the Twin system for many years, but now health has been an issue for him, and just injury after injury, it seems like. And over the last couple weeks since he returned, 6 home runs, 10 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 359 average, and a 422 on base. So Royce Lewis, in that doubleheader a few days ago, is where he got a lot of stats. And right now, well, he's been white hot, like I mentioned. He's a sell-high candidate because I don't know if he's going to stay healthy. We never seen a full season out of him to see what he really could do. And this is a perfect time in a small sample size to get a good starting pitcher in a deal. June 11th versus the Rockies, 1-for-4. June 12th versus the Rockies, 3-for-5, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. June 13th versus Oakland, 2-for-4 with a run. And June 16th in the doubleheader versus Oakland, 3-for-7, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored. So right now, while Lewis is playing great baseball and hitting out of this world with 6 home runs in the last 2 weeks here, he's a perfect hitter to sell this week. The next hitter is his teammate Carlos Correa of the Minnesota Twins. So last season, it was a horrible year for Carlos Correa. And even going back to Houston a few years ago as well, before becoming a free agent, and obviously going through the carousel of failing physicals, he wasn't doing much. So Correa was struggling for the most part of a year and a half, 2 seasons, but this season he's definitely turned things around, even though he was injured early in the year as well. 8 home runs, 35 RBIs, 34 runs scored, a 308 average, and a 370 on base. And over the last 2 weeks, you can't get this guy out. 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, 12 runs scored, 444 average, and a 467 on base. So his on base to batting average isn't great over the last few weeks. But everything else, he's white hot. And he's coming off that doubleheader a few days ago as well versus Oakland, where he had a monster game. So Carlos Correa, it's good to see him this season hitting over 300. But he's just been a man possessed, like I said, over the last couple weeks, where we've seen a 5-hit game from him. June 12th versus Rockies, 5-for-6, 3 runs scored, and RBI. June 13th versus Oakland, 3-for-4, homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. June 14th versus Oakland, 1-for-4, 2 runs. And that doubleheader versus Oakland, June 16th, 5-for-10, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored. So he's playing amazing baseball over the last couple weeks here, is Carlos Correa. But I don't know if it's going to keep it up. See, over the last 2 seasons, he really hasn't done much, is Carlos Correa. But to see him bounce back is a good thing. But I just don't think a majority of the season he could do it, and injuries have definitely been a problem as well from him. Next hitter is Steven Kwan of the Cleveland Guardians. So Kwan, we know he's a batting average hitter, and right now he's doing what he does best, hitting the ball all over the field with a high batting average. But everything else, he's not really going to bring fantasy owners besides batting average, even though he's hitting about 400 this season, which is unheard of. On the season, 4 home runs, 17 RBIs, 39 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 398 average, and a 456 on base. So Kwan, it's not like he has 50, 60 at-bats where it's a fluky average. In 176 at-bats, he's hitting the 398. And over the last couple weeks, he's been on base for 60% of the time. 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 543 average, and a 610 on base. So Kwan, like I said, batting average is his specialty, and he's gone above and beyond this season, no doubt about it. Especially the last 2 games where he has 7 hits in the time, is Steven Kwan. So right now, well, he's been the best hitter easily on the season this year. He's still a one-trick pony for the most part, which is pretty much batting average here for Steven Kwan. And runs scored, where I think you could go out there and get a good starting pitcher or get a hitter who does a little bit more. Because like I said, if this elite average isn't going to be that at the end of the season, and let's say finishes on the year 330, 340 average, still great, but pretty much runs, and that is what he's going to bring on. Is June 12th at Cincinnati, 2-for-5 a run. June 14th at Toronto, 1-for-4. June 15th at Toronto, 3-for-4. And June 16th at the Jays, 4-for-5 in RBI. So nowadays, batting average isn't a huge thing in fantasy baseball, where we've seen a lot of hitters get the home runs, get RBI, stolen bases, runs scored. And Steven Kwan, for the most part, is a 2 or 3 category player at best. So right now, well, he's white hot, and easily the best hitter in the league in terms of getting on base, batting average by a landslide. He's a sell-high candidate this week. The next hitter, Jeimer Candelario of the Cincinnati Reds. So Candelario got off to a slow start to begin the year, but he's definitely picked things up here with the Reds on the year. 12 home runs, 35 RBIs, 26 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 252 average, and a 310 on base. But over the last 2 weeks here, pretty much a majority of the season of his numbers he got in this 2-week span: 6 homers, 14 RBIs, 7 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 340 average, and a 346 on base. A Candelario, we know he's a 240, 250 hitter. He's gonna hit his 20, 25 home runs. White hot right now, and he's at peak value in my opinion. Why I would look to sell him high is Candelario. Like I said, the last few weeks, hitting out of control. June 12th versus Cleveland, 3 for 4, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored. June 15th at the Brewers, 2 for 4 ribbed. June 16th at the Brewers, 1 for 3 in RBI. And June 17th at the Pirates, 1 for 4 with a run and a stolen base. Candelario's hitting great, no doubt about it. Like I said, he's hitting over his head a little bit over the last few weeks. And when Marte gets back in the lineup, we'll see how this team shuffles around a little bit as well as the Cincinnati Red team, where Candelario possibly might lose some at-bats. So he's a sell-high candidate this week. In the 5th and final hit, I look to sell in trades. Heliot Ramos of the San Francisco Giants. So Ramos, a hot pickup over the last couple weeks. And right now, he's having a great year, no doubt about it. 9 home runs, 31 RBI, 16 runs scored, a stolen base, a 326 average, and a 404 on base. And over the last couple weeks for Ramos, 6 home runs, 15 RBI, 7 runs scored, a 396 average, and a 483 on base. Obviously, it's not going to stick, this batting average and on base percentage, at a high amount like it is, because we don't really see hitters anymore hit over 320 at best for the most part. So right now, while Ramos is playing out of this world, and I know he was a top prospect in this Giant system, I just don't see him keeping it up all season. And pitches, they're going to make adjustment, watch film, and try to get Ramos some more breaking balls, because right now he's taking advantage of some fastballs and making the most of it. But a young hitter like Ramos, to throw him off balance, more breaking pitches, and we'll see as pitches adjust if he could adjust. But right now, well, he's been one of the best hitters over the last 2 weeks in fantasy baseball. He's a sell-high candidate because, like I said, these numbers aren't sustainable, and the league's going to make adjustments on him. June 14th versus the Angels, 2 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs. June 15th versus the Angels, 3 for 5, a homer, 3 ribs. June 16th versus the Angels, 2 for 6. And June 17th at the Cubs, 2 for 4, a homer, an RBI in that one. So right now, playing great baseball is Ramos. And I'm not going to dump these players just for anything. But like I said, these players are playing over their head, I believe. And if you could get something for them while they're at peak value, this is the time to do it. So that's a few hitters I look to sell and trade for week 12 of the fantasy baseball season.